Good evening, friends. Meeting after a gap of 3-4 days in the philosophy session. Many thanks to all of you for wishing me on the Teachers' Day. It's an occasion for all the students to wish their teachers, and I also wish my teachers, basically all the teachers who have taught me in my life, as well as main teacher who has given whole thing to the me, Dr. Nitin Bagli sir, because of whom I got whole confidence in the life, and because of whom I am there in the field of homeopathy with confidence in orthopedic homeopathic practice. The main role is his. And second, my parents. So thanks to them, and we'll start with our today's session. We have finished up to the ninth chapter from Kant's philosophy. In last lecture, we have discussed regarding the concepts of diseases, specifically the role of vital force in the state of health, in the state of disease, and then in the state of cure, and what exactly the disease is. So disease lies specifically at the internal dynamic core, at the level of vital principle, vital energy, vital force, and reflected in the form of signs and symptoms. First, it starts with altered functions and sensations, and if it persists, never got treated, or if palliated for continuously, then it turns towards the changes happens at the pathological level. So cellular changes and pathology comes later, which is the end product. So disease is prior to it, and if you understand these concepts, then it is possible to understand how to treat it. So basically, thing is that the disease is at the dynamic plane. You will require the medicine also at the dynamic plane. Without a medicine which acts at the dynamic plane, it is not possible to cure that patient. So to get an ideal cure, it is necessary to understand about the medicinals, and that's what we have to learn. So we starts with the lecture number 10, where he has written that Aporism 18, Materialism in Medicine. What he says, Scott Kent says, let us go ahead. Several paragraphs now to be read are scarcely more than recapitulations of the subject already spoken of. In going over previous paragraphs, I have introduced these points in advance because it was natural to do so in connection with the subject in hand. I will therefore glance over them until we reach something new. In the 13th paragraph, Hahnemann says, therefore, it is not aphorism 18, it is aphorism 13. In the 13th paragraph, Hahnemann says, therefore, disease that does not come within the province of manual surgery, considered as it is by the allopathist as the thing separate from the living whole, from the organism, and in its animating vital force, and hidden in the interior, to be it of ever so subtle in character, is an absurdity. Absurdity म्हणजे हास्यास्पद, अमूर्खपणा, foolishness, असमंजसपणा, is an absurdity that could only be imagined by the minds of materialistic stamp, and has for thousands of years given to the prevailing system of medicine all these all those pernicious impulses that have made it truly mischievous non-healing art. Here, Hahnemann directly criticized the old school system which was prevalent during his time, because the thought was very marked at that time that the disease happens because something material enters inside the body and which is responsible, and that concept was there. Hahnemann said, how can be it is possible to locate that material because it is not a material.
No sound, sir.
Hello, hello, just a minute. Hello, hello.
Still
Coming low, sir.
Hello, is it okay now?
Okay, sir. Now, okay, sir.
Yes, sir. It is
Okay.
okay, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yes. Hahnemann said
Yes, sir.
that how can it be possible to find it out that cause which is hidden inside in the interior at dynamic level with the help of naked eyes, with the help of any instrument, with the help of microscope? It is not possible. And still you are going to find it out the cause and saying that you are rational practitioners of healing art. He says it is absurdness. It is absurdity. He criticized it because that materialistic view was there. The thought was very clear in their mind that this is never happens without something material enter into the body. The thought was very specific, and that's why everyone was finding it out what has gone inside. But no one able to find it out. Then they tries different methods at that time to remove that material cause without knowing the material cause. And that's why everyone came out with the different methods. During Hahnemannian time, there was a treatment that to give the medicine which induces vomiting, give the medicine which produces give the laxatives in order to produce the diarrhea, gives the medicines in order to produce induce the sweating, give the medicine or give take the cuts on the body and remove the blood from the body, or do the venesections over there, considering that something material enter inside the body which is responsible to produce a disorder over there. So that was the thought, and because of which the there was not at all a cure happens, but every time whatever the vital strength was there with the patient, that also lost because of that. And Hahnemann criticized his own pathy at that time because he was an allopath. And knowing that these are the things which happens in his system, he has criticized by calling it as a non-healing art or a mischievous art. And then what Kant says upon it, just see what Kant explains about it. Kant explains his philosophy. The material notion referred to was that existing in the time of Hahnemann. Materialism is still growing. It seems impossible for the majority of men of the present day to perceive. Perception, that is, seeing with understanding, seems to be entirely lost. And this is the quality which they never used to think. Perceiving. What is perceiving? Perceiving means to find it out, to locate the peoples, just find it out what is going on, and understanding behind that, behind the observation, is a perception. And no one was thinking before looking inside. And that's why he says perception, that is seen with the understanding, seems to be entirely lost. The materialist refuses to believe anything that does not conform to the laws of time and space. It must be measured, it must be weighed, it must be occupy the space, or he has no idea of it, and will distinctly affirm that without this it is nothing and has no existence. There was a there were people who were materialists, used to think everything material, used to think that everything cause behind all those disorders is always something material enter inside the body. And they tried to find it out what material. And from their concept, it should be measured, it should be visible, it should be weighed, it should have a physical existence. And they used to find it out such a cause inside the body, which they never used to get commonly. Everything beyond this is not the is to the material mind poetical, dreamy, mysterious. So anything beyond that which is not visible, they consider it never exists. They consider whatever the peoples are talking regarding those things, it is just a dreamy, it is the poetry. But there are many things they have accepted. They have accepted the magnetic force. They have accepted the magnetic energy. They have accepted the moon energy, which is also not visible. But still, the science has accepted because on the cause and effect. But they were not accepting it in the field of disease, in the field of medicine. And Hahnemann criticized this aspect of the materialist. He's saying, so they look in vain in the material world for the cause. So they used to go on finding it out what is the cause of the disease, material cause of the disease. And it is in vain. Vain means nishfal. It is not of any use. You will never find a material entity as in any way causing anything. It has no causative power, no creative influence, no propelling influence. Propelling म्हणजे चालवणारा, पुढे ढकलणारा. No propelling influence. Causes or simple substances are in the natural state, in motion, and cause motion in the bodies that they occupy. The natural state of for the simple substance, that of power, of mobility, of activity. The natural state of matter is rest, quietude, silence. It has no power to move unless acted upon. So he is comparing that whenever we say the vital force, we say the vital energy, vital principle, it has no existence directly, but because of which the animation is there, because of which the movement is there, because of which the reproduction is there, because of which you find it out that the things are going on. In the natural state, it has activity. But if you consider material, the material substance never have its own activity. It never have its own motion. It is in the state of rest, quietude, and silence. So, like the dead man, whose tissues are at rest, it has no action of its own. But the simple substance dominates the matter and animates it. So he is explaining that simple substance is there, that is the vital force is there, which is responsible to give the animation to this body, this existed body. And if it is so, then you have to understand the concept of vital force. If you are not accepting it, it is just a body. It is just a dead body. The two worlds, the world of motion, of power, and the world of inertia exist in one. There is a world of life and there is a world of dead matter. He is explaining the twofold existence of the human being. One existence at the material level in the form of a body, and one existence in the dynamics at the level of vital force or simple substance. Both are necessary. It never have a single existence. So this is what we have to understand. There is a world of life and world of dead matter. The realm of thought and realm of matter are the realm of cause and realm of the result. So see what is the realm of thought and the realm of matter. Thought is there, which is invisible, but the material is there, body is there, which is visible. Are the realm of cause and realm of result. So cause is hidden in the dynamics, result is expressed in the physical level. Causes are invisible, results are visible. We see the actions of material substance, but the thinking man has only to reflect to see that these actions are the visible in the material form are but the results of causes that exist in the form of simple substance, which is invisible to the natural eye, but visible to the spiritual eye or understanding. So whatever the actions of human being are there, they are the reflections of his thoughts, of his will. So whatever you do is the result of your will. But your will, your thought is invisible. How do you know? You know only through the body. So it has twofold existence, material as well as dynamic. It means a human being has a substantialistic existence. It requires both. Body also required in order to show the existence of the vital force, and life is also necessary to express without. You cannot express the life without the help of material body. Both things are necessary, the dynamic as well as the material, and then we can understand the human being. The materialist cannot grasp this idea. He cannot think in this way. We have the grandest confirmation of these things in the wonderful action of our potencies in varying degrees in which they operate upon man, from the lowest to the highest. You will discover in the course of the time that the large number of chronic diseases, our antizootics will cause changes in the economy, curative or otherwise, in from 5 to 7 different potencies. In this, you have demonstrations of degrees of simple substance and their relation to different planes in the interior of the economy. So he is explaining that when you have to understand this human being, then you have to understand exactly the disease. Then you have to understand that disease happens internally at the level of dynamic, expresses externally in the form of signs and symptoms or some material changes. But cause is always inside. If that cause is inside, then your remedy should be a dynamic. We should reach to that dynamic plane, act in the dynamic plane, and bring that disturbed vital force again on the path. If you give material medicines to this dynamic disorder, it will not going to cure. So this is too important to understand that you have to understand the concepts clearly. If you are materialist, you cannot accept this twofold concept of the human existence. If you are not able to accept, then you cannot treat. So this is two important thing which he is explaining in order to explain that why homeopathic medicines acts even in chronic diseases, psoric diseases. If you give the psoric anti-psoric remedy, it brings back the original psora and removes the chronic disease because it acts in the same plane where the disease has developed. He wants to explain you that concept that material the dynamic disorder should be treated with the dynamic medicines at the dynamic plane then that disorder can be cured. Okay, so we'll go ahead with the aphorism 14. Aphorism 14. There is in the interior of man nothing morbid that is curable, no invisible morbid alteration that is curable, which does not make itself known to the curability, known to the accurately observing physician by means of morbid signs and symptoms, an arrangement in a perfect conformity with the infinite goodness of all wise preserver of human life. So what he says in the aphorism 14, he is explaining more about the vital force and the concepts of vital force over here. So what he says, there is in the interior of man nothing morbid that is curable. So there is nothing morbid that is curable, no invisible morbid alteration that is curable, which does not make itself known to the accurately observing physicians by means of morbid signs and symptoms. An arrangement in a perfect conformity with the infinite goodness of all wise preserver of human life. So nothing visible thing which is altered over there. Whatever is there, it is invisible. It is invisible, which happens to be there exactly inside, and because of which the disorder develops. Nothing happens like some material entered in your body and which has produced such type of disorder. All disorder starts inside. It is it is the in fact the human being, the vital principle which gets affected, ultimately expressed in the form of signs and symptoms. And if your concept is very clear, then you will treat that. And that's why Kent explains his own philosophy regarding this aphorism. This we have already spoken of. Every curable disease is made known to the physician by signs and symptoms only. Incurable diseases have few signs and symptoms, and by their absence, the disease is often thus known to be incurable. So, if in your cases, if there are very few symptoms, then it is rather a difficult case. That's why Hahnemann said diseases, one-sided diseases, are difficult to be cured. One-sided means the diseases which has very few symptoms. That's what he has explained, and that is the definition of one-sided disease. So, if the symptoms are much more, it is rather simple to cure. But if symptoms are less, it is rather difficult to cure. By watching the patient gradually decline without any symptoms, but those which are the common expressions of pathological condition, we see that the case is incurable and is going down to the death. See, he is explaining exactly that while watching the patient gradually decline without the symptoms, but those which are common expressions of pathological condition, we see the case is incurable and going to the death. So if a patient comes to you with a big pathology and where symptoms are lost completely, then that pathology is becomes one-sided. Then it becomes rather difficult to cure. And this is what he wants to explain. All curable maladies, therefore, have signs and symptoms in order to make themselves known. Their purpose is to shadow forth the disorderly condition of the vital force or interior of the man, so that the physician may read it and understand its nature. This imaging forth when the human race is in a state of ignorance or materialism is like seed sown upon stony ground. There is no man to understand them, to apprehend their meaning. The image of sickness are continually being formed and only wait for man intelligent enough to observe them, to understand their meaning, to translate them, and it is possible for men by the doctrines of homeopathy to become wise and intelligent enough to be conversant with this sign. And he is explaining over there that though whenever the disease happens to be there and which has multiple signs and symptoms, what is the role of physician is to grab those signs and symptoms, find it out exactly the totality, match that totality on the basis of law of similar, and find it out antitype totality in the medicine and give that medicine. The intelligent physician will always look for signs and symptoms with which he can reach to the right similitude. The unintelligent physician will go and find it out what pathology lies over there. So this is the difference between two things. The materialist man always looks towards some tissue change, something material. The person who is homeopath, a dynamic, who used to find it out what is wrong with the patient and what are the altered signs and symptoms. In this paragraph, we also see Hahnemann's recognition of divine providence. It was the very recognition of providence that enabled Hannibal to become a man, and being directed by divine providence enabled him to finally pursue the law. With his little ones were being hurled to the death by strong drugs, the first thought of Hahnemann was that the providence had not made these little ones to be destroyed by the medicine. It seems to him inconsistent that they should be made to take this miserable stuff. In all your experiences, if you live to be very old, you will find a very poor lot of homeopaths among those who do not recognize divine order. You will find among them false science, experimentation, but never any government of principle, no thought of purpose, order, or use. So what he is explaining? He is explaining that Hahnemann also considered that there is specific order which is developed by the human being, in the human being by the God. He was a strong God believer and he used to understand the human with all those perspectives because of that specific power which is developed in him by the God. And because of which he was able to understand both the aspects of the human life, the spiritual as well as the materialistic aspect of the human being. And then he has explained over there that if you understand this language of the disease, which is a very important thing which is created by the God, that if there is any disease, any disorder in the vital force, it always reflects in the form of signs and symptoms. You have to catch that and you have to treat that patient without wasting time to find it out what is material inside the body. If you are able to catch, you can treat that patient. If you are not able to catch, then you cannot treat that patient. So ultimately, it requires an intelligence to find it out what is the God's order and how He has created this human being. There is everything inside a human body. If you fall ill because of just common cold, because of change of weather, see, if you treat it, it requires 7 days. If you don't treat it, it requires week. So ultimately, it is one same thing that it happens to be there. Without medicine, also you get cured because there is system which is created by God and it works. Only thing is that it should be in order. If it is in order, it everything can get cured. If it is not in order, it is your duty to bring it in order. And that's what you have to do when you treat those disorders with the help of homeopathy. So he is explaining all those things in detail. And then he says, Hahnemann was not in the strictest sense the discoverer of the law. For the Hippocrates said that disease might be cured either by opposites or similars. But Hahnemann discovered this by pure experimentation and the following out of strict order. Hippocrates was also knowing this law of similars, but he has not experimented with law of similars. He was knowing it both the laws, but he has never utilized. Hahnemann was the first one who experimented on the law. After reading it up, he found corroboration of the principles he had discovered and he followed along the line, growing wiser and stronger until he formulated the code, which is so simple and yet so complete. Very few are able to read the Organon at the first and see anything in it, but words. An eight oldest practitioner of pure homeopathy finds nothing in it to change. And the older he grows, and the older he grows, and becomes more active in work, the more he depends upon it and more consistent it becomes. Although I have been teaching the organ for many years, I never go over it without discovering some new thought in harmony with the general teaching. The continued study of organon brings the deeper and deeper understanding of it because it is true. So Hahnemann was the first one who experimented with this law, even though it was present before him. It was known to Hippocrates, but he has not experimented. Hahnemann experimented, and not only experimented, he has experimented in such a manner that throughout life, right from 1790, when he started experimenting with this law, till his death, he was working and making the truth of his science day by day with much more experimentation and ultimately coming out with the different editions of Organon every time ever changing with the truth. And ultimately in the 1842, he was ready with the Organon which was there in our hand, that is the sixth edition. See, this is the result of experimentation. Nothing is conjecture, nothing is thought. It is everything, whatever has is there in the organ is the result of this pure experimentation. And that's why it is so clear truth which he has explained. And he has made homeopathy to such a level with his own perspective, with his own experimentation, and finding it out all the truths and making it simple for the new practitioner, for the followers. And this is what he has explained over there. So the concepts which are there in the organ of medicine, they are the products of experimentation, and we have to understand them in depth. If we are able to understand in depth the organon, we are able to practice a wise homeopathy, clear homeopathy. And that's why it is so much necessary to understand the organon and its philosophy. So we'll conclude with this paragraph. Tomorrow we'll continue with the same chapter. I think tomorrow we might finish that and we'll start with the next chapter. So that's all for today. Thanks once again for everyone being there for this session. At 8:30, we're going to start a remedy, acute of sulfur, that is an aconite. And aconite is the first important remedy which one must understand. In fact, a common remedy which you can get in practice and will learn more and more practical aspects of aconite, how to utilize aconite, in what stage the aconite patient comes, and then it is quite easy to catch the aconite. So be there at 8:30 with the aconite lecture. If any queries are there, we'll have a chat. Otherwise, we'll continue. Any question? So thank you very much. We'll meet at 8:30.